As we know, the Minister of State KV Singh went to Kuwait, and he, it was an emergency visit, but every single major official of the from Kuwait met him, which shows the importance that India showed towards this particular crisis about getting the mortal remains. About getting the mortal remains back. You also have the same problem with, you also have with having brought them back now, you have them coordinating with the state agencies of Kerala, which is Nokra, which is going to get the families of these workers to the bodies. You're also going to have now the Ministry of External Affairs working with the state representatives in Delhi, because of course the victims are not just from Kerala, they're also from other parts of the country. They're also from Tamil Nadu, they're also from Andhra Pradesh. And what you're going to have is the state representatives coordinating with the MEA. The flight is going to move on to Delhi, where it's expected to land around 4 p.m. You're also going to have the MEA work with the state representatives there to make sure that the bodies get back to Andhra Pradesh, to Tamil Nadu, to Uttar Pradesh, to wherever the families need to be helped. The Ministry of External Affairs is going to give them the help they need.
Well, we also have Shibi Mole with us. Shibi, from what we see here, the officials are waiting by the flight for the mortal remains to be brought out. Give us more on the conditions this flight has arrived. Has it all been smooth? Was there a glitch? Was there enough coordination between the Kerala government and the centre? We know a tad bit of politics also ensued, with the opposition criticising the centre for not allowing the Kerala health minister to reach Kuwait. Give us more on that.
Nabila, firstly, the flight was about to land at 8:30, but then there was a delay from the Kuwait authorities' side that it got delayed, and later it landed at 10:30. But from 7 o'clock itself, everything was arranged in the Kuwait in Cochin Airport in place, because there have been tables laid to transfer these bodies from from the flight to outside the Cochin Airport, and the tables have been laid with each of the deceased name and picture. So after that, Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan will receive it, was the plan. But the plan is still on. But the issue is that it got delayed. It was supposed to land at 8:30, but it's now landed at 10:30. But one of the issues that the state, of course, has raised is about Health Minister Veena George not being able to travel to Kuwait. She was supposed to travel. This was a decision taken after the special cabinet meeting that took place yesterday. She is the minister in charge of Pathanamthitta district, and most of the victims are from Pathanamthitta, and that's why she was chosen. Her name was chosen to travel to Kuwait. She has already reached the Cochin Airport yesterday, but the political clearance had not been given, and she said that the chief secretary and the state government already communicated to the External Affairs Ministry before itself. It was communicated as soon as the meeting was over, but still the political clearance was not given, which is unfortunate, is what she said. Even Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan also spoke on the same lines that, this was something that was not expected. It is unacceptable at this point. He did appreciate the central government for coordinating everything, saying that they had sent the MOS External Affairs Minister Kirti Vardhan Singh right away to Kuwait, which is very appreciable. Everything was coordinated. We were working in coordination, but this one incident was not in really good was not really in good terms, but I would not get into it right now, because the priority right now, the focus ours is about ensuring that the mortal remains reach the residents as soon as possible, because some of their last rites will be performed today evening itself. So as soon as it should reach their residents, is what Chief Minister said. But yes, they did call it an unfortunate incident, because there are still many people who are injured and getting treatment at various hospitals in Kuwait. So this is one of the reasons why they were planning to send Health Minister Veena George to ensure that these activities are coordinated. If there's any help required, as the families are still in Kerala of those injured also. So just on behalf of their side, we wanted our representative to be there, but that didn't happen, which is unfortunate, is what the state government has said.
So the state government, represented by Pinarayi Vijayan himself, has spoken on this tragedy. Let's cut to him.
നമ്മുടെ രാജ്യത്തിന് തന്നെ സംഭവിച്ച ഒരു വലിയ ദുരന്തമാണ് കുവൈത്തിലുണ്ടായിട്ടുള്ളത്. 50 പേര് മൊത്തം അവിടെ മരണപ്പെട്ടു എന്നാണ് ഇതിനകം വന്നിട്ടുള്ള വിവരം. കേരളത്തിൻ്റെ ജീവനാഡിയായാണ് പ്രവാസികളെ നാം കാണുന്നത്. പ്രവാസ ജീവിതത്തിനിടയ്ക്ക് ഉണ്ടായിട്ടുള്ള ഏറ്റവും വലിയ ദുരന്തമാണ് കഴിഞ്ഞ ദിവസം കുവൈറ്റിൽ സംഭവിച്ചത്. അവിടെ മരണപ്പെട്ടവരിൽ 33 പേരുടെ മൃതദേഹമാണ് ഇന്നിവിടെ എത്തിയിരിക്കുന്നത്.
All right. Clearly, even the Kerala Chief Minister, Pinarayi Vijayan, addressing the issue as the worst tragedy that may have hit Kerala, the NRI community in recent times. 23 of them all hailing from Kerala, the 7 of the 31 from Tamil Nadu and 1 from Karnataka. Their mortal remains have just arrived into the Kochi airport via that Indian Air Force aircraft. We're going to keep our lens focused on that flight as the mortal remains are being brought out. Slipping into a short break, coming back with more on this story. Do stay with us.
You are watching India Today.
Introducing Motorola Edge 50 Fusion. Own the spotlight.
At the India Today Media Institute, we believe in training students in independent and critical thinking so the youngsters can better analyze the world around them. At the Media Institute, the training will be rigorous and with multimedia to produce top-notch media professionals. Register now at www.indiatodaymediainstitute.in.
This has called it the worst tragedy within Kerala among the NRI community in recent times. Let's hear it.
നമ്മുടെ രാജ്യത്തിന് തന്നെ സംഭവിച്ച ഒരു വലിയ ദുരന്തമാണ് കുവൈത്തിലുണ്ടായിട്ടുള്ളത്. 50 പേര് മൊത്തം അവിടെ മരണപ്പെട്ടു എന്നാണ് ഇതിനകം വന്നിട്ടുള്ള വിവരം. കേരളത്തിൻ്റെ ജീവനാഡിയായാണ് പ്രവാസികളെ നാം കാണുന്നത്. പ്രവാസ ജീവിതത്തിനിടയ്ക്ക് ഉണ്ടായിട്ടുള്ള ഏറ്റവും വലിയ ദുരന്തമാണ് കഴിഞ്ഞ ദിവസം കുവൈറ്റിൽ സംഭവിച്ചത്. അവിടെ മരണപ്പെട്ടവരിൽ 33 പേരുടെ മൃതദേഹമാണ് ഇന്നിവിടെ എത്തിയിരിക്കുന്നത്.
All right, there you have it. Kerala Chief Minister who's spoken, calling this the worst tragedy in recent times. Shibi Mole with us. We also have Shashank Mattu. Shibi, do tell us how far has this operation been complete? I see you're headed somewhere. Where are you off to?
Nabila, I'm moving to the residence of one of the deceased here in Thiruvananthapuram. In fact, what we're hearing from the Cochin Airport is that the flight had landed in the cargo section, so there's a cargo clearance, plus there are certain formalities to be completed before it's brought out to the airport. Like I said earlier, the arrangements outside the airport from the state government side has been completed because, like I said, there are 23 tables laid down with the name and the photo of the victims. So accordingly, the mortal remains will be placed, and officially Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan will receive that. It's been taken out. That's what the information I've got from the Cochin Airport, that one by one the mortal remains are being taken out. There are certain formalities. The cargo clearance is also required. So all of that is being completed now, and right outside the airport, the state government as well as all the other political party representative government authorities are all waiting outside to ensure, to receive this mortal remains, and right after that it will be taken to the residences.
All right. Shashank Mattu is also with us. Shashank, we hear that that building, I'm not too sure if you have information on that, but we hear that that building where fire caught on is also owned, at least part owned by an Indian national. And we believe that that same company that hired those employees had given them that place as housing. So Kuwait authorities have called this act of greed and that they have violated rules and laws. But one would really raise questions on why Kuwait administration did not carry out their periodic checks to ensure that a situation like this could be avoided, because there were glaring misses. No fire alarm, not a proper fire escape. So fingers could be pointed at the Kuwait civic authorities as well.
Absolutely, Nabila, and you've already seen that the senior officials in the municipal administration where this fire took place have already been suspended. While we have seen a lot of anger from the Kuwait government, this is something that people have talked about for a very long time, that the Kuwaiti government and the authorities, for them, the lives of Indian migrant workers have always been something that, their rights and the conditions in which they live in. There have always been questions and criticism about how numerous Gulf countries, not just Kuwait, handle this. There have been numerous complaints of labor abuses. There have been numerous complaints of non-payment of wages for Indian migrant laborers. They're trapped in debt traps by unscrupulous agents. It's really a massive problem of which, yes, indeed, as you mentioned very rightly, the idea of living in cramped accommodations that are not properly regulated that led to this tragedy, that is absolutely a part of this. So you're right that the Kuwaiti authorities have moved very strongly to punish officials in this regard. But larger questions are going to be asked about how Gulf authorities generally and the Kuwaiti government looks at the rights of Indian migrant workers and whether changes need to be made in how in protection of the rights of Indian migrant workers. Those are important questions that will need to be answered.
Give us more, Shashank, on the ex gratia amount promised by Prime Minister Modi under the centre. They are granting 2 lakhs to the kin of deceased. But has there been any word from the Kuwait government as well as compensation for this lapse?
We haven't seen anything in particular. We know that the question has been asked to the Kuwaiti government. There are reports about their particular, that they may be considering giving compensation to the families, but at this point in time, that isn't exactly clear. But we know that that questions have been asked, particularly from media persons and so on, to the Kuwaiti government. So far, not a clear answer on that just yet.
All right. Well, we know that this is a 6-story building that caught fire, and you had 50 individuals who died, of which 45 of them are Indians. We continue to show you these images that are coming in from the Kochi airport. These are live images as we beam in. Mortal remains has just arrived and being brought out of the Indian Air Force aircraft. And we see the officials who are waiting in line to receive it, hand them over to the family members. Shebi Mole also with us. Shebi, are the families also present at the airport? Or is this now an official movement alone and then families will be called in? Are they placed somewhere else? Have they been asked to move somewhere else or at a meeting point?
Nabila, the information that we have is that the state government representatives are there to receive the mortal remains, and later it will be transferred to the residences. The family members, yes, there could be 1 or 2 of the family members who could be there to receive this, but the state government has promised them that, till the mortal remains reach the residence, there will be a police pilot van accompanying them till it reaches wherever the location is, till it reaches the residence of the house. There will be a police van accompanying the ambulance that's been prepared, that's been ready at the Cochin airport. So that's what we're understanding. It will be the government who will be handing over the mortal remains to the respective families till the very end, right after. Till the very end. That's the information that we have as of now from the government.
Okay. So these images that we see here are of the victims, those who died in the Kuwait fire tragedy, and we hear many of them literally jumped to death as they had no option. There wasn't a proper fire exit, and many of them died in their sleep. The horror stories that are emerging really scary and could have really been avoided, but unfortunately here we're looking at a day when their mortal remains are being brought back. These are live images at the Kochi airport. Shiv Arur, of India Today also joins me on the phone line. Shiv, we're looking at speedy repatriation efforts by the central government. We see the Ministry of External Affairs, MOS, has also accompanied the officers in the Indian aircraft where mortal remains are being brought back. This tragedy is really the worst of its kind in recent times, as quoted by the Kerala Chief Minister as well.
It is easily the worst. 45 is a staggering number, and I think the fact that the mortal remains have been brought back quickly, is a good thing. The last time a tragedy of this kind happened, which I believe happened in Iraq many years ago, Nabila, it had taken about 15 to 16 days for all the paperwork to be completed. So this time, obviously, India and Kuwait have worked quickly to bring the mortal remains back, back swiftly, so that there are no, procedural delays. The Indian Air Force C-130 aircraft, which is usually based in Hindon, has been used for this repatriation effort. And like you reported, a Minister of State for External Affairs in the new government was there, the day following the tragedy itself to coordinate all the efforts. These are extremely complicated efforts because the staggering level of paperwork that would be involved in something like this is huge. And, like we've been reporting on our channel,
as soon as possible. We also visited 5 hospitals where there were around 32 to 35 patients who were being treated of Indian origin who were injured in that fire. And we spoke to them individually, we inquired about their health, and all the hospitals and the directors were there. And I would also like to thank the hospital staff of each hospital that exceptional care is being taken by the hospital staff and the doctors of those patients. And most of them are likely to be discharged in a couple of days.
So how challenging it was, this distribution?
See, we do not look at it how challenging it was. It had to be done. We took all possible steps, all possible efforts to have it done. And normally, as I said before, this would have taken at least a week, 10 days. But because of the good relationships between our government and the Kuwaiti government and the sensitive issue that it was, and especially with the Prime Minister's intervention on this part, on his part, the royal family of Kuwait, the officials, the ministers, His Highness of Kuwait, they all took personal interest so that the bodies could be brought back as soon as possible. And in the hospitals, we are told that His Highness has called up the hospital people and the Minister for Health personally, and the Minister of Health has himself done rounds of the hospitals where the people injured are being treated.
So in Kuwait, the Kuwait government has taken up the inquiry. Any details about that inquiry?
Yes, the Kuwaiti government is taking this incident very seriously, and they're taking all possible steps. They're making inquiries as to how it happened, so that this kind of a tragic incident is never repeated again. And they assured us that they will take all possible steps. They have also assured us that all the paperwork regarding the insurance that is to be paid to the families, the compensation, will be done as immediately as possible. And His Highness has also, from his part, also provided a compensation to the families of the victims who have perished in this tragic incident.
So one more thing, only 35 persons dead bodies are just in Trivandrum, in Kochi. So what about the rest people? Some are...
No, I'll give you the details. 31 victims are from Kerala and surrounding southern states. Those remains are being offloaded here. The remaining will be offloaded in Delhi, and then from there they'll be transferred to their respective homes.
So you discussed the arrangements that happened in Kerala right now?
I'm sorry?
The arrangements that are done in Kerala. So
that is, no, I'm not aware of that. We just come out from the airplane, and those arrangements are being done by the government here, and I'm sure they'll be adequate.
There are a lot of injured persons out there in Kuwait. So what about their cases? Will they...
I just spoke to you about that the people who were injured in this incident, they are in hospitals in various, and they have been put in 5 different hospitals, which are the best hospitals of the country. And we visited all the 5 hospitals, and we met with all the injured people individually, each and every one of them, inquired about their health. and the doctors and the team and the directors of the hospital were accompanying us to each patient, and individually we inquired about their health, their well-being. We took stock of the injuries, how long will it take them to be discharged. So there were some with fractures who had jumped from the second floor or the fourth floor. Obviously the fractures will take some time to heal. They will be in the hospital for a couple of weeks. But the other persons who had inhaled smoke and had harm, and lungs were harmed to some degree, I'm happy to say that they're recovering very rapidly, and most of them are going to be discharged in a couple of days from the hospitals.
Any persons very seriously injured in ICU or something?
There were 3 people in the ICU, of which 2 are recovering in the proper way, and there's 1 person who the doctors will be keeping in the ICU for some time. There's just 1 person who they are very hopeful of recovery, but it will just take a bit longer.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, going back to Shivarur on that, Shiv, we get a confirmation that things have been smooth. The External Affairs Junior Minister, who's himself landed in Kuwait and brought back the mortal remains with him, he's accompanied the aircraft, and we see those live images right now beaming from the Kochi airport.
That's right. GC Vardhan Singh, the Minister of State for External Affairs, who was there, Nabila, the following day itself, confirming that everything has happened smoothly. But there are still many unanswered questions. Let's remember the staggering figures of this story. 45 Indians, have died from different states. Most of them from Kerala, some from Andhra Pradesh, from Tamil Nadu, from Punjab as well. The fact is, an investigation will need to happen into how this fire actually took place. 45 is a huge number. You're talking about accountants, engineers, supervisors. Some of the people here, pretty senior people in a living quarters for migrant workers in a country where in excess of 40% of the migrant workers happen to be Indian citizens. There have always been concerns about the living conditions extended by the Middle East governments to migrant workers from different parts of the world, including India. This is a concern that has been raised constantly by India, and this appears to be a symptom of that. The reason why it's important to say this, Nabila, is because no journalists are allowed to film at these labor centers. No journalists are allowed access, to take sound bites or to interview people at these living quarters. They are pretty much out-of-bounds areas. Nobody's allowed to conduct any form of journalism there. There have been occasions in the past where people who've gone and filmed there had their tapes confiscated or the cameras confiscated. So it has led to people wondering what is there to hide. What kind of conditions are many of these people actually living in? Obviously, the people who live there and work there, they're unwilling to share too many details of this because their livelihood depends on it. They are sending remittances every month back to their families in Kerala, in Tamil Nadu, in Andhra Pradesh, wherever it is they're from. This is a livelihood issue. As you know yourself, and you've traveled there, the huge Indian expat population in the different Gulf countries that live and work there, are in many ways a backbone of the labor and migrant worker community in that country. And therefore, I think the new government, the Modi 3.0 government, it is true that the Kuwait government may have extended compensation and assured accountability, etc. But this is an opportunity, I feel, for the Indian government to bite the bullet and ensure it turns the screws on these countries to make sure that these people are safe. It's one thing for Kirti Vardhan Singh, the junior minister, to say, we have to make sure this never happens again. But they need to put their money where their mouth is, because we've got literally millions of people, our citizens living and working in these countries. And this comes as a reminder. What has happened in Kuwait comes as a reminder that they are not safe. If 45 people in a single incident can die, many of them supervisors, many of them engineers, accountants, white collar work, in some of those areas, you would presume that they would have better working conditions. Even if you look very cynically at the kind of class system that obviously exists everywhere, this is horrifying. You can only imagine the kind of conditions in which blue-collar workers work in these countries. So this is an opportunity where accountability needs to be fixed. I'm just skeptical about whether that will happen, because the past, Nabila, when Indians have died in some of these countries, nobody's ever heard after the incident about whether accountability has been fixed, whether blame has been fixed. You only hear about, some compensation happening, the bodies being brought home, and that's the end of it. So this time we will have to see whether accountability can be fixed and, heads will roll.
Shiv, the images are really troubling to see those mortal remains in boxes with faces, pasted on them for identification, with a small printout of the face of the person who's dead on those boxes. I can't imagine what the family could be going through. For them, they are their only breadwinners. The entire economy that sends works on the income that comes in from the NRIs. And imagine one person working abroad handles an entire family. They could be a family of 4, 5, many of them with children who are married. So this is devastating for them. It's a real blow to families entirely. And here we see that the Kerala government has given 5 lakh rupees as compensation. The Modi government at the centre has given 2 lakhs in compensation. But this couldn't really suffice to help support a family. Clearly not enough.
You're right. The families, each and every one of these families makes a sacrifice when one of their loved ones needs to go and, practically live for years together in these countries. They come back quite rarely because the demands of their work are so high. So seeing these caskets with their mortal remains being brought back is deeply, deeply painful. Each one of these families, has taken the decision that they will live without their loved ones because of livelihood issues. The huge amount of labor force that, states like Kerala especially send to the Gulf, for work, we have to understand is a sacrifice because of the work opportunities, livelihood opportunities that the Gulf and the Middle Eastern countries offer. That's one of the reasons why millions of Keralites live and work in the Gulf countries, whether it is Kuwait, whether it is Oman, Bahrain, all of these countries. And they need a huge amount of labor. Local labor is something that they cannot depend on, and that's a niche that India has built for many decades together. And to see, these loved ones of these families come back in these coffins is absolutely terrible, because all of these families, and you're right, all of these families place a certain amount of trust, in the government, in the administrations in those countries, to ensure the safety of these people. Because something that it doesn't get mentioned enough. All of these people, the names that we're reading on our screens right now, Akash Nair, Umruddin, all of these people who have, left their families and gone to work there, they are working for backbone industries in countries like Kuwait. They are engineers, they work on pipelines, they work on the oil fields, they are accountants for big companies that are actually refining oil. They are part of the core economic strength of these countries. So these aren't some peripheral people. They're very, very important to the economy of these countries, and that's the reason why they are housed in those countries and given work opportunities there. So for Kuwait now to think that it can, perhaps just write it off with a little bit of compensation, which is nothing for a rich country like Kuwait, is very sad to see. I don't want to jump the gun. I'm sure an investigation will happen, and I hope the Indian government will read the Riot Act to Kuwait as far as ensuring accountability happens. But I agree that the sacrifice of these families in, first of all, having to live without their loved ones for months and years together, barely seeing them, their only point of contact, of course, is video calls and WhatsApp and things like that. To see their families come back with just a printout on a casket is beyond heartbreaking. And more than anything else, each one of these people is very likely the sole breadwinner, like you said, of each of those families. So there's also a terrifying prospect of what their future is going to look like. So I hope beyond the 5 lakhs, 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs that are coming in from all the governments, someone is looking at these families very closely.
Absolutely. And we know that there's been a fair share of politics that also has accompanied it, with the Kerala government blaming centre for not allowing the health minister to also move towards Kuwait to help in these efforts. And it always comes with its fair share of politics. Do take us through the kind of clash. If I could bring in Shibi Mol on this, if Shibi is with us. Shibi, if you can bring in the kind of politics that's now brewing around this, while the mortal remains have been brought back, we know that the Kerala government is clashing with the centre for not allowing the health minister to arrive in Kuwait and help with these efforts. Though all of it has happened seamlessly so far, the controversy on the sidelines.
Nabila, the state special cabinet had yesterday decided that Health Minister Veena George will be travelling to Kuwait immediately. In fact, we had also spoken to her right after that, where she said that some of them are seriously injured and admitted to hospital. So we feel, considering that we have very close ties with nations like these, and also considering that most of the victims and those injured as well as the deceased are from Kerala, we thought there is a requirement for us to be there to coordinate these activities, considering that all their family members are in Kerala. They will not be able to travel to Kuwait at this stage. So that was the reason that she was finalized to travel, and also because she was a minister in charge of the Pathanamthitta district, and most of the deceased out of the 23 are natives of Pathanamthitta district. After she reached the airport, it was informed that she has not got a political clearance from the External Affairs Ministry, which she said that there was a lot of, last minute confusion, last minute lack of clarity as she was waiting at the airport for a long, after which she got a confirmation that she will not be able to travel as the political clearance was not given. Then she spoke to the media saying that, this is very unfortunate because we had communicated, the state government had communicated it earlier itself to the union government, and also the chief secretary also returned and communicated the same thing right after the decision was taken by this special cabinet meeting that was held yesterday. But it didn't happen. This is very unfortunate is what she said. And also Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan did touch upon it, saying that I'm not planning to speak on it right now because I don't think it's the right time to speak politics, or it's the right time to speak or have a blame game taking place. So I'm not speaking much on it or looking into it right now, but I will speak about it later is what he said. Those are the lines in which he spoke. And also the state had also got support from the opposition in the state. Congress also, as opposition leader V.D. Satish also said that it's very unfortunate that the union government did not give clearance for a state minister to travel to the Kuwait to coordinate all these activities. The BJP, of course, in the state has said that it's unwanted, criticism and unwanted controversy that's being created right now, as the centre has already done everything on its part very clearly and very rightly. That was something that was mentioned by Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan also, that the union government did coordinate everything well, as the MOS, External Affairs Ministry, Kirtivardhan Singh, had travelled to Kuwait immediately after the accident took place. So all of that was done, but this is something that was not right on the part of the union government to not allow the state health minister to travel to. We know there's been a centre-state clash regarding Kerala. So
you're right,
in the last
Shivi,
few
the
days,
centre-state
in the last few
clash,
years. So,
of course, the different parties, the opposition and the centre, are always clashing on the political front. But when it comes to a case like this, we expect controversies to be kept aside. But nonetheless, we are seeing smooth efforts of repatriation. The Ministry of External Affairs has really extended all help to the family members in terms of coordinating, ensuring the mortal remains have been brought back. 23 of them who hail from Kerala, their bodies have just arrived. These are images coming in live from the Kochi airport. We've been on relentless coverage. Stay tuned to India Today. We are back with these images right after a short break.
You are watching India Today.
You're watching India Today. I'm Nabila Jamal. Let me cut to the visuals coming in of the Kuwait fire, the mishap that killed 45 people. Those Indian mortal remains have been brought back to India. The Indian Air Force flight that's carrying the mortal remains of 45 of them has just arrived at the Kochi airport. Those are images that we see here. Indian Air Force carrying mortal remains of all 45 Indians have been brought to the Kochi airport. In fact, they have been coordinating with the Kerala government as well. We know for certain that most of them hail from Kerala. Accompanying the remains is Minister of State Kirtivardhan Singh. He's flown in. In fact, he quickly, soon after the incident, he rushed to Kuwait, coordinated the repatriation efforts, and he's brought the mortal remains via the Indian Air Force flight, just landing at the Kochi airport. A really disastrous fire that killed 50 individuals, of which 45 of them Indians. All right, the numbers that we have here is 31 of them out of the 45, 31 Indians hailing from Kerala particularly, their mortal remains have been brought back. They've just landed at the Kochi airport. These are live visuals coming in. Special IAF flight from Kuwait with the mortal remains landing in Kochi airport with 31 Indians' mortal remains that have been brought back. The rest of them hail from different other parts of the country, but 31 of them from Kerala alone. Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan has also reached the Kochi airport as the flight has landed. They're waiting for those on the flight to deboard. Union Mantri Suresh Gopi at the Kochi airport as well. Coordination efforts have been on since the day the episode happened. In fact, out of the 50 people who died in that building fire tragedy, there were at least 45 who were Indians, most of them hailing from Kerala. 31 of them, their mortal remains has just arrived into Kerala. A severe fire that broke out in the ground floor of that Kuwait housing complex. It rapidly caught on to the upper floors where nearly 200 people were residing. At least 100 of them were Indians, and it could have been a short circuit that's suspected. In fact, the investigation into what really led to the fire is still on, but initial investigation claims it was a short circuit, and it rapidly spread to the other floors as there was a lot of combustible material placed inside those apartments. Shivi Mole, who's also with us, she's in fact right there at the Kochi airport tracking those live images. Shivi, very tragic to see the family members as well as the Kerala government, all who arrived. Can't imagine what's going through the family of those deceased. 31 of them, a large majority of those who died, all hailing from Kerala. They've just landed at the Kochi airport with the mortal remains. Give us more details.
Well, Nabila, the mortal remains of 31 people who died, 31 Indians who died in Kuwait has landed in Kochi. It was supposed to land at 8:30, but there was some delay in Kuwait that right now it's landed at 10:30. Out of the 31, 23 are from Kerala, 7 from Tamil Nadu and 1 from Karnataka. The mortal remains of the Tamil natives will be taken to Tamil Nadu by roadway is what we are understanding. The representatives from the DMK government in Tamil Nadu has also reached Kochi along with Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan. We heard Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan saying that all arrangements are in place. In fact, yesterday there was a special cabinet meeting held by the Kerala government to coordinate all the activities. He said that the central government did act on time. Everything was coordinated well. But the State Health Minister Veena George was supposed to travel to Kuwait yesterday, but that didn't happen as the External Affairs Ministry didn't give the political clearance. But yes, but he also went on to say that it's not a time to discuss politics about all this. It's about focusing on what can be done right now. The most important thing is, of course, ensuring that the mortal remains reach the residences on time. In fact, most of the, the last rites will be performed today itself is what we're understanding. So it needs to reach the house of these 23 people. All the arrangements in Cochin Airport are in place because there's been tables laid there. Each table has the name and the photograph of the person who died, who are natives of Kerala. The mortal remains will be placed there. Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan, on behalf of the state government, will receive the mortal remains. And right after that, it will be taken to the houses, the respective houses of these people, the 23 people. In fact, it's very tragic because, out of the 23, at least 2 of them had returned to Kuwait after a vacation only last week. So, it was just a matter of weeks' time that, they lost their lives. They were in Kerala a week ago, and today they're coming back to Kerala, but, lifeless. And that's something that's come as a shocker for the families. In fact, not just the families, the state of Kerala, considering that the state has a very close relation with countries like Kuwait, since a lot of, there's very considerable Malayali population. The Malayali diaspora in foreign countries are very strong. So it's been a decade-long relationship, and that's what Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan was highlighting, that in the recent past, we have not heard of a tragedy like this where, we had to wait here to receive the mortal remains of so many Malayalis coming from abroad. This is tragic. This is, shocker for everybody in Kerala, considering that mostly all the families in Kerala will have at least one relative or one family member staying abroad. So that's the kind of connection the Malayalis have with these countries also. So extremely tragic, extremely shocking that some of the families got to know about the death news. They got a confirmation after seeing the photographs of these people on television screens as well as on newspapers. So extremely tragic. They were in close touch with the families who have gone there, as the sole breadwinners of the family, and coming back lifeless is not something that any family could accept, and that's exactly what we are seeing and hearing around us in Kerala today.
So tragic, Shibi, but from what we see here, there's been seamless communication between the family members and those who are currently recovering. We hear that many of them are still critically injured. They're receiving treatment at hospitals. Many of those also hail from Kerala. So efforts by the government of India has been smooth. We know that helplines have been open right from the day this incident happened to now. And the repatriation efforts have also been smooth. The flight has arrived along with the MOS himself. Give us more on the coordination efforts with the Kerala government along with the centre carrying this forward in tandem.
Nabila, like you said, there are many people who are still admitted to various hospitals in Kuwait who are undergoing treatment. Some of the injuries are very serious. Some of them are seriously injured is what the government sources were telling us. So we'll have to wait for a few more days to see that, whether their health recovers, whether their health improves, the condition improves is something that we'll have to wait and watch for a few more days is what the government sources were telling. In Kerala, the coordination is done through the Norca Routes platform, which is a platform for the non-residential Keralites platform where you have all the details of people living abroad from Kerala. So they have started a 24-hour helpline in Kuwait with in coordination with the Malayali organizations there, the Malayali diaspora there. So some of the numbers have been issued to people living in Kuwait and the families here to contact and coordinate and ensure that they get the information that they're seeking on time itself. The State Health Minister was supposed to travel to Kuwait yesterday, but in the last moment she was not given a political clearance by the External Affairs Ministry, so she couldn't travel. But yes, the coordination activities are in place. The main concern that one of the families were raising was about the mortal remains being transferred as soon as possible. Well, that's been done. That's been completely done as the mortal remains of the 23 people have reached Kerala. Also, there was a request by the state government to the centre to ensure that it's directly transferred from Kuwait to one of the airports in Kerala that the state had requested to avoid a halt in any other cities like Delhi or something. But if possible, please directly bring it to Kerala in one of the airports. We will arrange all the facilities, is what the state government had informed the centre. Well, that was done because it's a direct flight from Kuwait, direct special Indian Air Force flight from Kuwait to Kochi that has landed with 31 mortal remains of people from Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka.
All right. So from the list that I have here, we see that 45 Indians in total have died. Out of the 45 Indians, 23 of them are natives of Kerala, and among them also 7 out of the 31, 7 also hailing from Tamil Nadu and 1 from Karnataka. And there are multiple others who are coming from different parts of India, 3 from Andhra Pradesh, 3 from Uttar Pradesh, 2 from Odisha, 1 Maharashtra, 1 Bihar, 1 Bengal, 1 in Punjab, Haryana 1, Jharkhand 1. So total of 45 Indians, now of which only 31 people's mortal remains have been brought back. And this has arrived at the Kochi airport where they're coordinating with the government of Kerala to ensure the mortal remains reach the family members of those deceased. Shibi, if you could take us through the kind of compensation the Kuwait government has promised to those deceased, have they at all? We know that the Indian government under Prime Minister Modi has promised 2 lakhs ex gratia amount for the kin of deceased.
Nabila, we are yet to get a confirmation regarding that. But yes, the central government has announced 2 lakh for the families of the deceased. The state government has announced 5 lakh to the deceased families and 1 lakh to the families of those injured. In fact, there was an information from the Chief Minister's office that 2 prominent NRA businessmen from Kerala of the Lulu Group and the RP Group, they have also announced compensation of 5 lakh and 2 lakh respectively, which means the state government said that the families of the deceased will be getting 12 lakh from Kerala itself, 5 lakh of the government, and 5 and 2 by the businessmen who have given this money. So a 12 lakh amount will be given from Kerala, and the central government has also announced compensation of 2 lakhs. So that's the amount that's been announced for now. And also regarding the treatment of the injured, that will be something that the state government and the central government will be taking care of. The state has already informed that they're ready to cooperate in whatever ways they can. That's why State Health Minister Veena George was supposed to travel to Kuwait. She was saying that most of the families are here. They cannot travel to Kuwait. So that's why we thought of sending our representative to Kuwait to ensure that all the coordination work is done. Whatever help we can provide, we could do that. Being there is what the state had decided, but that didn't take place. There was a lot of, last minute lack of clarity as she was waiting at the airport for the clearance, but the clearance was not given. We might see the politics of it also playing out in the coming days, but the priority right now, like Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan said, is to ensure that the mortal remains reach the houses as soon as possible. There are 23 ambulances ready in place at the Cochin Airport. A police pilot vehicle will be accompanying all these 23 ambulances until it reaches the residents of theirs.
And most of these people who've died, unfortunately, Shivi, are the sole breadwinners of their families. They've all moved to the Gulf countries to earn their bread and butter, support an entire family in Kerala. So with their loved ones gone, one can imagine the way it could collapse an entire household. And Kerala, large populations there are NRIs. They bank on the money that comes from their loved ones from abroad. And here we're looking at nearly 24 Indians who come from Kerala alone, 24 families that could really that's received a blow after this news. So any word on Kerala government in a way trying to support them? Of course, at the end of it, it is a fire mishap, something that isn't in anyone's control. But any word of the kind of help financially that the Kerala government is going to be extending to the family members, do elaborate for us on the kind of compensation the Kerala government is mulling over.
Nabila, the immediate relief that they announced is 5 lakh, like I mentioned, to the families of the deceased. They have already contacted the central government to ensure that the Kuwait government authorities also take immediate action to ensure that the families are supported, because it's an accident that took place there. There was lapses there, so it should be taken care of. This is what Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan a while ago said, that the central government needs to ensure that the Kuwait government extends its support to these families, because and also he has also asked that strict action should be taken against whoever was the reason behind it, what led to this accident, this tragic accident that took place, whoever was behind it, and strict action should be taken against them, is what the government here has said. But yes, the compensation has been announced.
fly to Delhi, land in Delhi around 4:30 p.m. And those include UP, Orissa, Bihar, Punjab, Maharashtra, West Bengal, Jharkhand, and Haryana. Another one from Karnataka also will be offloaded in Kochi, or has been. So a very serious situation right there. But the MOS, Mr. Singh, who travelled to Kuwait, has come back saying that the Kuwaiti government has taken serious note of the incident. But Nabila, it does bring about the larger question of how Indian labourers are kept in West Asian countries in the Arab world. The situation, labour standard of living of labour and the blue-collared workers in these parts of the world is absolutely abysmal. We've had cases of complaints. We've had cases where the owners or the employers take and confiscate the passports, do not allow the Indians or the workers to move out or even return. We've had calls for help in the past. So this certainly brings about the larger question of how can so many people be stuffed into just one building and into rooms where the capacity is much lesser than the number of people living. And the fact that when a fire breaks out, it becomes impossible for so many people then to be evacuated or to escape the fire. So a lot of questions. While the Kuwaiti authorities have taken a serious note of this, and there could be compensation, who will be giving the compensation, whether it's the employers, the government, there needs to be clarity on that. But there are larger questions, Nabila, and we will have to start now asking and reporting on the conditions of blue-collared workers in such countries, and whether if India now is in a position, India has been talking about these issues, but India is in a position to leverage our power, our position, to ensure that Indians who are working in these parts of the world are treated fairly, are treated better than this. This certainly should be a wake-up call to not just Kuwait, but other countries in the region as well, and a wake-up call to the Indian government. So whilst we see the Indian External Affairs Ministry take up the matter very, very quickly, respond very quickly, move very quickly, the minister went there immediately. He's not just been a part of repatriation of mortal remains. There are a lot of severely injured people, Indians, who are now in 5 other hospitals. He went and visited them. There would be some who would want to return back to India. So we'll have to see how the government facilitates repatriation for those who are now in the healing process, and some very severely burned. So again, the provisions for them, the health facilities for them, the medical facilities for them, according to the minister, has been quite good. But if they want to return to India, would there be a repatriation facility for them as well, is something we'll have to wait and see. Again, Nabila, going back to the larger question, should this be allowed? Should so many workers be stuffed into small rooms in these countries, and labour laws be violated? No questions asked. If they get into trouble, it becomes very difficult for them to be rescued. Employers are allowed to confiscate passports and employment documents. So unfair treatment to blue-collared workers in these parts of the world. And it's not just Indians. Anybody from the developing world where countries send such labour force to these countries have a huge problem in their hands. And that certainly has to do with labour laws.
Geeta, if you could really give us the difference. You're saying that Indians could be ill-treated or not treated on power with the local workers there. What's really the difference? In what sense do you say that Indians have substandard living conditions, that they're cramped into buildings? We hear that the building that was built where these Indians were staying is also part owned by an Indian.
Well, absolutely. And let's just look at the difference. One, if you looking at West Asia and the Arab world, most of the locals no longer are part of the labour force. They actually are so well-to-do now that most of the labour force come from countries like India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and of which Pakistan, Bangladesh constitute a lot of the labour force, but a lot of them come from down south in the Gulf, in in West Asia, or what we call, or what the Western world calls Middle East. And if you look at the kind of conditions, the pay parity to begin with, the pay parity where the Indian labor force or Pakistani, Bangladeshi, any country from this part of the world is paid way less than if it were their own people. And certainly we don't see labor force from the developed world. So it is either them, the locals, or from this part of the world. And locals in those countries are far reduced now in number when it comes to blue-collar jobs. They all outsource these jobs to labor force from this part of the world. Although when it comes to pay, they go there in need for jobs, but also because they earn a lot more than they would have in their own countries. Whether it's India, whether it's Bangladesh, Nepal, they earn a lot more when it comes to pay. So pay parity when it comes to their own country versus the Arab world could be higher. They save a lot more because of the conditions that they live in, cramped up. And even if they choose to, Nabila, it should not be allowed because they all are trying to save some money. And over there in West Asia, in the Middle East, if you're looking at these countries, there have to be certain standards that should be maintained. It's not just about pay parity; it's about the treatment meted out to these workers as well. It's certainly not at par with how they treat their own. There are a lot of cases that I personally deal with, and we then take it up with the Ministry of External Affairs that such and such person is in trouble. His passport has been confiscated, he's being ill-treated, he wants to return. There is no way of returning because there is some guarantee money that they take and they need to work till that money that they owe to the employer is paid for. So it is actually quite, not just an unhealthy way of working and functioning, that's actually bonded labor to a large extent. So the larger question over here is that will the Indian administration now sit down with these countries and change the rules of the game? You want employees, you want employment you want Indian labor force to go and work in West Asia, in your country, then you better have these standards, which is pay parity, standard of living, where do they live, what are the working conditions. You cannot hold them against their will. If they want to leave, their passports cannot be confiscated and kept by these employers or sheikhs. So there has to be that parity. The Indians who have gone there and built a life for themselves and partner with these employers only know this. They don't know better because they themselves have gone through the same drill. So everything now has to be rewired to know that Indian labor force, one, doesn't come cheap and it doesn't come without respect. The respect and honor of allowing people the space to leave when they want to, work in a certain way and have decent living conditions should just be basic. And that's what this Kuwait incident, which we've not seen in a long time, Nabila, we've not seen such an incident where so many Indians have lost their lives and so many others severely injured or suffering severe burn injuries, admitted in hospital. So it is a wake-up call. We've been reporting about this. I have been reporting about this. Our network has been reporting about this. Every time we see such a case of Indians languishing somewhere in the Arab world. But now it is time for the Indian government to wake up and reconfigure those rules of the game when it comes to employment and workforce, Indian workforce in the Middle East.
Right. You know, Geeta, and like you said, Indians also come with skill, great skill. You have most of these people who've died. You have blue-collared workers, you did mention, but should I point out, many of them engineers who were staying in that building and who've died. You have a project manager, you have a consultant, you have a driver, you have a project engineer, all of them living together in that same building. So it's all levels of employees who were put together or literally dumped in that one housing complex. And we hear there were Indians, there were Bangladeshis, Nepalis, Egyptians, Philippines, a mixed bag of people and nationalities all in one housing complex, nearly 200 of them, which was highly cramped according to Kuwait standards. But Then what happened to Kuwait authorities, civic authorities not checking if violations were committed, not ensuring that these buildings have proper fire exits or fire safety alarms? Those safety nets weren't checked if they were in place or not. So it's surely to be the Kuwait authorities also to be blamed here.
Well, in many ways, then, Nabila, the Kuwaiti authorities are to be blamed, but because these are the living conditions that have been provided for years, for decades. It's not new. Everybody knows that that there are colonies after colonies where Indians, Bangladeshis, Pakistanis, Sri Lankans, they all stay cramped in buildings, in rooms, and there is nothing that has been done about that. So it is not new. It is something that has been happening for years. But again, like I go back to the whole idea and point of now how both governments should be working towards ensuring safe living conditions. Even if they're not absolutely decent, the most standard should be safe living conditions. And if this is not priority, then there has to be a rethink on how workforce should be sent to West Asian countries. So and you know, Nabila, with this incident in Kuwait, a lot of other countries will now start looking at working conditions of Indians in their own countries, because it is quite abysmal, and they need to start looking into it, because should there be an incident in any other country, I do not think that the Indian administration is going to take it very lightly. We do know that, you know, the government has prioritized safety of Indian diaspora, concerns of Indian diaspora abroad, and they have looked at how to make life better for them. This certainly is not part of that entire safety for Indian diaspora architecture, and if the Indian government wants to look and seem serious about providing that safety net for Indian diaspora abroad, they need to start working on this front. We have been talking about it for way too long. It's been decades that I've been reporting on safety for Indians in West Asia, the fact that they're ill-treated, the fact that there is no accountability, the fact that there is no place that they can go to for justice. Many of them for months languish in or are taken captive in the employer's residence, many of them in jails, because it's very easy to file complaints against these Indian workers and put them behind bars. So there has to be a relook on how these countries treat Indian workers.
It's really heartbreaking to see these images, Geeta, that are coming in where family members have just arrived. They've reached the mortal remains of their loved ones. They're sobbing, in fact, inconsolable. You have the Kerala government authorities who are also standing right there beside the family members as they identify the caskets of their loved ones where the mortal remains have been placed. Many of them inconsolable. These are live images that we're bringing for you from the Kochi airport. In fact, 31 people, largely who hail from Kerala, their mortal remains have been brought back. There is expected to be another round of the Indian Air Force aircraft coming down, carrying the remaining number of Indians, 45 of them who've died, of which 31 has come down for now. There's still about 16 people's mortal remains that needs to be brought back, and they come from different parts of India. At this point, it's only this aircraft that's carrying large number of Keralites and people from Tamil Nadu. 7 from Tamil Nadu, 23 from Kerala, 1 from Karnataka. Their mortal remains has just arrived at the Kochi airport. These are live images as we see that area there fully crowded, family members there who've just arrived, identifying the casket of their loved ones, and you see them sobbing there, many of them in still shock. In fact, we hear Shivi Mole giving us a sense of how families even found out that their loved ones had died after they saw coverage on media channels, photographs of their loved ones put up to show that they were the ones who died in the fire. That's how families even understood that a tragedy had taken place, and then tried to contact the officials, and thereafter this repatriation efforts were coordinated. So many of the family members were not even informed because their loved ones died and perished in the dead of the night. The fire broke out at around 6 a.m. Early the morning, and even before those victims could realize what had hit them, the smoke had engulfed the building in such a manner where a lot of them, we hear, died owing to suffocation. In fact, some of them even jumped to death. They couldn't handle the fire and the smoke. They jumped to death. Many of them who died in their sleep because of the smoke. The others who were burnt beyond identification. Shibi Mole is with us. Shibi, these images are really heartbreaking. We know that the family members have all arrived. Have they all been coordinated with? Are you at the spot?
Well, Nabila, that's what we're understanding. Like you mentioned, very disappointing images coming from Cochin Airport. In fact, one of the victims' body was identified by his father itself, who was working in Kuwait himself. So, the father has also accompanied him, is what we're understanding. So, very heartbreaking images. There are families, members who have come there, relatives who have come there to receive the body along the mortal remains along with the state government. In fact, it might, get delayed because I'm right now outside one of the residences, one of the deceased residences here in Thiruvananthapuram. He's the only resident from Thiruvananthapuram who's, among the 23, he's only one native of Thiruvananthapuram. So here, they were expecting the mortal remains to reach much earlier because earlier it was said 8:30, but now it will be reaching really late. We're expecting, the time that they're expecting is around 6 o'clock, and right after that, they're not going to keep the mortal remains at the residence for a longer time. Right after that, it will be taken for the last rites, is what the family members are telling. In fact, very disappointing scenes, not just at the airport, even at the residences. That's what we're seeing. Some of them had just went to Kuwait last week after leave. At least 2 of them out of the 23. We heard that 2 of them had returned to Kuwait after a vacation just a week ago. So one of them, the date that they said was June 5th. One of them had returned to Kuwait on June 5th, and exactly a week or like a little more than a week later, they're coming back lifeless. It's not something that the family can really accept. There are announced.
fly to Delhi, land in Delhi around 4:30 p.m. And those include UP, Orissa, Bihar, Punjab, Maharashtra, West Bengal, Jharkhand, and Haryana. Another one from Karnataka also will be offloaded in Kochi, or has been. So a very serious situation right there. But the MOS, Mr. Singh, who travelled to Kuwait, has come back saying that the Kuwaiti government has taken serious note of the incident. But Nabila, it does bring about the larger question of how Indian labourers are kept in West Asian countries in the Arab world. The situation, labour standard of living of labour and the blue-collared workers in these parts of the world is absolutely abysmal. We've had cases of complaints. We've had cases where the owners or the employers take and confiscate the passports, do not allow the Indians or the workers to move out or even return. We've had calls for help in the past. So this certainly brings about the larger question of how can so many people be stuffed into just one building and into rooms where the capacity is much lesser than the number of people living. And the fact that when a fire breaks out, it becomes impossible for so many people then to be evacuated or to escape the fire. So a lot of questions. While the Kuwaiti authorities have taken a serious note of this, and there could be compensation, who will be giving the compensation, whether it's the employers, the government, there needs to be clarity on that. But there are larger questions, Nabila, and we will have to start now asking and reporting on the conditions of blue-collared workers in such countries, and whether if India now is in a position, India has been talking about these issues, but India is in a position to leverage our power, our position, to ensure that Indians who are working in these parts of the world are treated fairly, are treated better than this. This certainly should be a wake-up call to not just Kuwait, but other countries in the region as well, and a wake-up call to the Indian government. So whilst we see the Indian External Affairs Ministry take up the matter very, very quickly, respond very quickly, move very quickly, the minister went there immediately. He's not just been a part of repatriation of mortal remains. There are a lot of severely injured people, Indians, who are now in 5 other hospitals. He went and visited them. There would be some who would want to return back to India. So we'll have to see how the government facilitates repatriation for those who are now in the healing process, and some very severely burned. So again, the provisions for them, the health facilities for them, the medical facilities for them, according to the minister, has been quite good. But if they want to return to India, would there be a repatriation facility for them as well, is something we'll have to wait and see. Again, Nabila, going back to the larger question, should this be allowed? Should so many workers be stuffed into small rooms in these countries, and labour laws be violated? No questions asked. If they get into trouble, it becomes very difficult for them to be rescued. Employers are allowed to confiscate passports and employment documents. So unfair treatment to blue-collared workers in these parts of the world. And it's not just Indians. Anybody from the developing world where countries send such labour force to these countries have a huge problem in their hands. And that certainly has to do with labour laws.
Geeta, if you could really give us the difference. You're saying that Indians could be ill-treated or not treated on power with the local workers there. What's really the difference? In what sense do you say that Indians have substandard living conditions, that they're cramped into buildings? We hear that the building that was built where these Indians were staying is also part owned by an Indian.
Well, absolutely. And let's just look at the difference. One, if you looking at West Asia and the Arab world, most of the locals no longer are part of the labour force. They actually are so well-to-do now that most of the labour force come from countries like India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and of which Pakistan, Bangladesh constitute a lot of the labour force, but a lot of them come from down south in the Gulf, in West Asia, or what we call, or what the Western world calls Middle East. And if you look at the kind of conditions, the pay parity to begin with, the pay parity where the Indian labor force or Pakistani, Bangladeshi, any country from this part of the world is paid way less than if it were their own people. And certainly we don't see labor force from the developed world. So it is either them, the locals, or from this part of the world. And locals in those countries are far reduced now in number when it comes to blue-collar jobs. They all outsource these jobs to labor force from this part of the world. Although when it comes to pay, they go there in need for jobs, but also because they earn a lot more than they would have in their own countries. Whether it's India, whether it's Bangladesh, Nepal, they earn a lot more when it comes to pay. So pay parity when it comes to their own country versus the Arab world could be higher. They save a lot more because of the conditions that they live in, cramped up. And even if they choose to, Nabila, it should not be allowed because they all are trying to save some money. And over there in West Asia, in the Middle East, if you're looking at these countries, there have to be certain standards that should be maintained. It's not just about pay parity; it's about the treatment meted out to these workers as well. It's certainly not at par with how they treat their own. There are a lot of cases that I personally deal with, and we then take it up with the Ministry of External Affairs that such and such person is in trouble. His passport has been confiscated, he's being ill-treated, he wants to return. There is no way of returning because there is some guarantee money that they take, and they need to work till that money that they owe to the employer is paid for. So it is actually quite, not just an unhealthy way of working and functioning, that's actually bonded labor to a large extent. So the larger question over here is that will the Indian administration now sit down with these countries and change the rules of the game? You want employees, you want employment you want Indian labor force to go and work in West Asia, in your country, then you better have these standards, which is pay parity, standard of living, where do they live, what are the working conditions. You cannot hold them against their will. If they want to leave, their passports cannot be confiscated and kept by these employers or sheikhs. So there has to be that parity. The Indians who have gone there and built a life for themselves and partner with these employers only know this. They don't know better because they themselves have gone through the same drill. So everything now has to be rewired to know that Indian labor force, one, doesn't come cheap, and it doesn't come without respect. The respect and honor of allowing people the space to leave when they want to, work in a certain way, and have decent living conditions should just be basic. And that's what this Kuwait incident, which we've not seen in a long time, Nabila, we've not seen such an incident where so many Indians have lost their lives and so many others severely injured or suffering severe burn injuries, admitted in hospital. So it is a wake-up call. We've been reporting about this. I have been reporting about this. Our network has been reporting about this. Every time we see such a case of Indians languishing somewhere in the Arab world. But now it is time for the Indian government to wake up and reconfigure those rules of the game when it comes to employment and workforce, Indian workforce in the Middle East.
Right. You know, Geeta, and like you said, Indians also come with skill, great skill. You have most of these people who've died. You have blue-collared workers, you did mention, but should I point out, many of them engineers who were staying in that building and who've died. You have a project manager, you have a consultant, you have a driver, you have a project engineer, all of them living together in that same building. So it's all levels of employees who were put together, or literally dumped in that one housing complex. And we hear there were Indians, there were Bangladeshis, Nepalis, Egyptians, Philippines, a mixed bag of people and nationalities, all in one housing complex, nearly 200 of them, which was highly cramped according to Kuwait standards. But then what happened to Kuwait authorities, civic authorities not checking if violations were committed, not ensuring that these buildings have proper fire exits or fire safety alarms? Those safety nets weren't checked if they were in place or not. So it's surely to be the Kuwait authorities also to be blamed here.
Well, in many ways, then, Nabila, the Kuwaiti authorities are to be blamed, but because these are the living conditions that have been provided for years, for decades. It's not new. Everybody knows that that there are